Welcome, everyone, to Silas Grave Stories, where I share the kind of tales that might just make you double check the shadows around you. Before we get started, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more stories that will stick with you long after they're over. And hey, quick question. What time is it where you are right now? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to see how many of you are listening in the dead of night. All right, let's get into tonight's story. The night started normal, like nothing even remotely interesting had happened all day. I'd been stuck at my desk for hours, scrolling through TikTok in between pretending to study. My roommate Jake had taken off for the weekend and the apartment was all mine. I wasn't even doing anything fun. I was just vibing, rewatching old Netflix shows and eating instant noodles straight out of the pot. A real Friday night highlight reel. Around 9 p.m. I got a text from my neighbor, Mrs. Evers, asking if I could keep the noise down. Except there hadn't been any noise, at all. I'd barely spoken since Jake left. My phone wasn't even playing music. I stared at her message for a while, confused before responding with a quick sorry wasn't me. Maybe someone upstairs. She didn't reply, but something about the text stayed in my head. It was one of those moments where you try to move on, but your brain keeps nudging you. I shook it off, opened my window to let in some cool air, and ignored the faint creak I thought I heard from somewhere down the hall. It was just after 10 p.m. when it happened. A knock on the front door, not loud but firm. I wasn't expecting anyone. Jake wasn't due back until Monday, and the delivery driver had already come earlier in the evening. I grabbed my phone and walked to the door, keeping my steps light. Through the peephole, all I could see was darkness. The hallway outside was barely lit, the bulb overhead flickering like something out of a horror movie. Classic landlord problems. Who is it? I called, my voice steady but my heart already racing a little. No answer. For a second I thought maybe it was Mrs. Evers, but that didn't make sense. She always texted or called if she needed something. I waited another beat before muttering, "Forget this," and turned to walk away. That's when the knock came again. Louder this time. I debated for a second, then grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a broom, and opened the door just a crack. "Hello," I said, feeling ridiculous with a plastic broom in my hand. The hallway was empty. No one was there. I glanced down both ends of the corridor, my nerves firing on all cylinders. The whole building was dead quiet, just me and the flickering light. I shut the door, locked it, and double-checked the bolt, just in case. I went back to the couch, laughing at myself for being so jumpy. But as I sat down, I heard something else. A faint sound, almost too soft to notice, coming from the kitchen, like a chair being dragged across the floor. For a second, I froze. My first thought was that I'd left the window open and the wind had done it. Except I hadn't touched the window in the kitchen. The sound came again. Not dragging this time, footsteps. Barely their steps. Slow, deliberate. I stood up, gripping the broom tighter, telling myself it was nothing, even though my gut screamed otherwise. I walked toward the kitchen, the floorboards creaking under my weight, my phone lighting the way. When I peeked around the corner, the kitchen was empty. The window was closed. Everything was just as I'd left it, except the chair at the table was slightly out of place. I know what you're thinking. Maybe I bumped it earlier or didn't notice. But no, I'm obsessive about things like that. It had definitely moved. At this point, I needed a reality check. I texted Jake. "Hey, you didn't swing by the apartment or anything, right?" The message showed delivered, but no reply. I knew he was out of town, but asking felt better than sitting in silence. I paced the living room, broom still in hand, debating if I should call someone. Then, just as my phone buzzed with a reply, the lights in the apartment flickered. Jake's text was short. "What? No." "Everything okay?" I texted back quickly, probably just losing it. "Thought I heard something weird." Jake sent back a laughing emoji and told me to chill. Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one home alone in a sketchy old apartment. I set the broom against the wall and decided to call it a night. I wasn't about to get all paranoid over nothing. But as I headed to my room, I noticed something that sent a chill down my spine. The bathroom door was open. I don't leave it open, ever. I wasn't about to face whatever weirdness was going on by myself. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I landed on Emily. She lived closest, only a few blocks away. We'd been friends since freshman year, and if anyone could help me make sense of this, it was her. I hit call, pacing the living room as it rang. When she picked up, her voice was groggy. "What's up? It's almost midnight." "Hey, sorry, I know it's late, but can you come over? Something weird's going on here and I don't want to be alone." "Weird like how?" she asked, her voice instantly more alert. I hesitated, not wanting to sound crazy. I keep hearing things. Doors moving, footsteps. It's probably nothing, but it's freaking me out." Emily sighed. "Okay, give me 10 minutes. Relief flooded through me as I hung up. Knowing someone was on their way made me feel slightly less on edge. I locked the front door again, double-checked the windows, and sat on the couch, keeping my phone close. 10 minutes turned into 15, then 20. Emily wasn't answering her texts, and I started feeling uneasy all over again. Just as I was about to call her, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Emily. "Hey, I'm here. Outside your door." I jumped up and ran to the door, looking through the peephole. The hallway was empty. I frowned and texted her back, "Are you sure? I don't see you." No response. My heart was pounding now. I dialed her number, but the call went straight to voicemail. Something wasn't right. Then there was a soft knock on the door. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the lock. My rational mind screamed not to open the door, but a smaller, braver, or stupider. Part of me didn't want to leave Emily standing out there alone if she really was just messing with me. "Emily," I called out through the door. No answer. I took a deep breath, heart pounding, and turned the lock. The door creaked open. The hallway stretched out before me, empty and silent. My pulse quickened as I leaned forward, peering both ways down the corridor. Nothing. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it, a shadow slipping around the corner at the far end of the hall. It was so quick I almost thought I imagined it. "Emily," my voice cracked. The shadow didn't return, but the air felt thick, like it was pressing down on me. Slowly, I stepped out into the hallway, clutching my phone tightly. My screen lit up with another message. "I'm here. Turn around." Chills raced up my spine as I spun around. My apartment door swung shut with a loud slam, locking me out. Panic hit me like a freight train. I bolted for the door, fumbling with the knob. Locked. I didn't remember locking it. My breathing was ragged as I hammered on the door. The hallway behind me was silent, but it felt alive, like something, or someone, was watching. Another vibration from my phone. "I'm right behind you." I turned, heart racing, and there she was. Emily, standing in the dim light of the hallway, but something was wrong. Her head tilted unnaturally to one side, and her smile was stretched too wide. She didn't move, just stood there, staring. "Emily," I whispered, stepping back against the door. She didn't respond, then she lunged. My survival instincts kicked in. I lunged to the side, narrowly avoiding Emily, or whatever that was. She slammed into the door where I'd been standing, the impact rattling it in its frame. My heart pounded as I scrambled back down the hall, looking for something, anything, to defend myself. An emergency fire extinguisher was mounted on the wall near the stairwell. I darted toward it, yanking it from its holder with trembling hands. My breath hitched as I turned to face her. Emily moved unnaturally, her limbs jerking as though she wasn't in control of her own body. "Stay back," I shouted, raising the extinguisher. She didn't respond, just tilted her head again, that same unnerving smile plastered on her face. Then she came at me faster than I expected. Chapter 10. Fight or flight. My survival instincts kicked in. I lunged to the side, narrowly avoiding Emily, or whatever that was. She slammed into the door where I'd been standing, the impact rattling it in its frame. My heart pounded as I scrambled back down the hall, looking for something, anything, to defend myself. An emergency fire extinguisher was mounted on the wall near the stairwell. I darted toward it, yanking it from its holder with trembling hands. My breath hitched as I turned to face her. Emily moved unnaturally, her limbs jerking as though she wasn't in control of her own body. "Stay back," I shouted, raising the extinguisher. She didn't respond, just tilted her head again, that same unnerving smile plastered on her face. Then she came at me faster than I expected. The impact, I swung the fire extinguisher with everything I had, connecting with her shoulder. The force of it sent her staggering back, but she didn't cry out. She didn't flinch. Her head snapped back unnaturally, like a marionette, before resetting to that same tilted angle. She started to laugh, a low, guttural sound that didn't belong to her. My stomach twisted. I swung again, this time aiming for her head. The extinguisher hit hard and she crumpled to the floor, motionless for a moment. All I could do was stand there, panting. My hands shook as I lowered the extinguisher. "Emily," I whispered, my voice barely audible. No response. I backed away, heart hammering in my chest when my phone buzzed again. "Nice try." The lights in the hallway flickered. A deep chill filled the air. Emily, or what looked like her, started to twitch, her body contorting unnaturally as she began to rise. This time her face wasn't hers anymore. It was blank, featureless, and terrifying. I bolted toward the stairwell, extinguisher in hand. I burst through the stairwell door and started climbing, my legs heavy with adrenaline and fear. My mind raced with questions I couldn't answer. What was happening? Why was this happening? And most importantly, how was I going to survive? Each step up felt like it took an eternity. The fire extinguisher was slippery in my sweat-soaked hands, but I held onto it like my life depended on it. The laughter followed me, echoing up the stairwell. It wasn't just Emily anymore. It was layered, like multiple voices blending into something inhuman. When I reached the top, I shoved the final door open and stumbled onto the rooftop. The air was biting cold, but the open space brought a flicker of relief. The city sprawled out before me, glittering with life. Cars honked, people moved in the streets, oblivious to the nightmare unfolding above them. I ran to the edge and waved the extinguisher, yelling as loudly as I could. "Help! Someone, please!" A few people glanced up, but they quickly returned to their own business. The streetlights below made it hard to see if anyone was really paying attention. My phone buzzed again. I froze, dreading what I'd see. "There's nowhere to go. You're already caught." I felt a shift in the air behind me, like the weight of someone watching. Slowly I turned. Emily, or the thing wearing her form, stood there, her face still blank. But this time she wasn't alone. Two more figures emerged from the stairwell door, their movements equally jerky and wrong. They flanked her like sentinels. "No," I whispered, backing up. My heel hit the edge of the roof. I swung the extinguisher wildly, keeping them at bay. But they didn't seem fazed, inching closer with every jerking step. My mind raced. There was no way down, no one to help. The only choice left was fight or fall. "Stay back," I screamed, more to myself than to them. Then the thing that looked like Emily tilted her head again, and for the first time it spoke. "You brought this on yourself." The edge of the rooftop loomed behind me, the dizzying height making my legs weak. But there was no way I was jumping. If this was going to end, it was going to end here on my terms. I gripped the fire extinguisher tightly and set my feet. The figures moved closer, their bodies twitching with unnatural spasms. Emily's blank stare bore into me, her head cocking slightly as though studying my resolve. "Stay back," I shouted, my voice cracking but firm. The thing that wore Emily's face ignored the warning. It took a slow step forward and then another. The other figures followed, their movements synchronized like marionettes on the same strings. I swung the fire extinguisher at the air in front of me, the motion wild and desperate. "You're not real," I shouted. "You can't be real." As if my defiance triggered something, the three figures lunged. Emily, or the thing that had become her, was first. I swung the extinguisher with all my strength, the metal connecting with a sickening thud. She crumpled to the ground but twitched violently, already trying to stand. The other two closed in fast. One grabbed my arm, its grip ice cold and inhumanly strong. I twisted, using the extinguisher like a shield, slamming it into the second figure's chest. The force pushed it back, but not for long. My heart thundered in my chest as I kept swinging, each hit fueled by pure adrenaline. But no matter how hard I fought, they kept coming, their blank faces void of pain or emotion. I managed to knock one of them off balance, sending it stumbling backward, but the other lunged and tackled me to the ground. The impact knocked the wind out of me. The extinguisher slipped from my hands and skidded across the rooftop. My hands scrambled for anything to use as a weapon, but the thing pinning me down pressed harder, its cold, unblinking face mere inches from mine. Suddenly, the door to the rooftop slammed open. "Get the hell off him!" A deep, commanding voice boomed, followed by the sharp crack of something solid. The weight on me vanished as the figure was thrown off. Gasping for air, I looked up to see a man, tall, rugged, wearing a uniform, the police. Behind him, two more officers stormed onto the roof, their flashlights slicing through the darkness. The figures recoiled from the light, their twitching movements becoming frantic. Emily's form dissolved into shadow as the beam landed on her. The other two followed, fading like smoke in the wind. "Are you hurt?" the officer asked, helping me to my feet. I don't know," I stammered, still catching my breath. The officers escorted me downstairs. They checked the apartment, but it was empty. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of anything unnatural. I tried explaining what had happened, but my story sounded insane even to me. Shadows that looked like people. My dead ex-girlfriend's face. One officer gave me a sympathetic look, the kind reserved for someone they thought was cracking under stress. They left me with a card for a local therapist and instructions to lock my doors. I nodded numbly, but I knew they didn't believe me. Hell, I barely believed it myself. That night, I locked every window and door. I checked them twice, then 3 times. Exhausted, I collapsed onto my bed, the fire extinguisher now lying within arm's reach. As I drifted into a restless sleep, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Heart pounding, I reached for it. A new message notification glowed on the screen. It was from Emily's account. "We'll be back." The screen went black.